What you doing there, Dad?
I am painting the sporing colour phase of the Nassau grouper because we are talking about Nassau groupers today as an example of a conservation project that has really worked. A lot of people don't think that conservation works at all. And so it's always good to talk about these success stories, Jessica.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't you have one to talk about today too?
Yes. Well, we're just going to give everybody a chance to sign in, but so we'll say hello to everybody who already has done so. Hi, Mari. Hi, Sherry from Vero Beach. Hi, Michael Ferguson. Thank you very much for joining us again. Hi, Israel. Wonderful. We're going to just give it a minute or so that people can get comfortable, get situated with their coffee. I hope you guys have had a good day so far. And so we'll just have Dad paint a little bit more while people sign in. Just give it a couple seconds. Hi, Michael. We have a lot of people saying bless you and your creativity. Thank you so much, guys. Hello from York, PA. Where is that? Where's PA? Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. David Gare says hello from Galveston, Texas.
Hi, David.
Ed says hello from New Jersey. Paul says good afternoon from Boston.
All right. Awesome.
There we go. That's wonderful. Fella says hello from Lanzarote. I don't know where that is.
Lanzarote is in the Canary.
Oh, it's with an L. Oh, my bad. I misread that. Hi, Felipe from Miami. Thank you so much. Big fan. Good afternoon, Senor Carlos. Thank you for joining us again. All right. So I think hello, everybody who's just signed in. As was mentioned earlier, today we are talking about conservation success stories. It's important to talk about them because a lot of the things that we've been talking about has been a bit of doom and gloom in terms of scientific outcomes, etc. But there are successful conservation stories to tell, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So just a reminder that if you've missed a Facebook Live session, feel free to go onto the Guy Harvey website or Guy Harvey Facebook page to see all of the Facebook sessions as they've all been posted. So don't worry if you've missed any tips you've wanted to know for art, for different species, for different habitats, it's all there. Also, we're going to be talking today on the educational videos of the Nassau grouper and the blue iguana briefly. And these educational videos are located on the Guy Harvey website, on the Guy Harvey education page. So if you haven't seen them already, please check them out. And additionally, every Saturday we're doing the documentary day. So if you haven't seen any of the documentaries on Amazon Prime, or if you have but you haven't completed the catalogue, please go and have a look and also post a review. We'd love to hear what you think. So we've got quite a few people now joining in this afternoon. Hello, everybody. Hope you guys are all safe. And without further ado, we shall begin. So, Dad, you said you were drawing some Nassau groupers.
Well, first of all, I want to say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers.
Ah, yes.
For last Sunday. We were under curfew here in Cayman, but we still enjoyed a lovely day with my wife, your mother.
Yes.
And lots of cards and eating and ping pong and all sorts of cool things. I hope you had a similar experience. So in talking about conservation that does work, and it's really important to have stories or have examples and stories to tell people about how conservation works. Because a lot of people don't think that shark conservation works, or billfish or snappers or any of these other overfish species, cod, and halibut and all these other things, lobsters, conch, you can go on and on about overexploitation. Tunas. Here in the Cayman Islands, we have been very successful in the last 20 years in a project that aimed to protect specifically Nassau groupers, but groupers in general. The Nassau grouper, for those of you who don't know, is a very widely distributed species in the Caribbean and the Western Atlantic. They are one of the 6 larger warm water groupers, the largest being the Goliath grouper, then you've got the black grouper and the yellowfin grouper, and then comes the Nassau grouper. So it's about the 4th largest of all the tropical groupers in the Atlantic. And of course, like all groupers and snappers, they go and spawn in the same place at the same time every year, even though They live on the reef as solitary predators. So this makes them very vulnerable for a short space of time, for about a week. It's normally in January or February here in the Western Caribbean. In the Bahamas, it's a month earlier, the same species, so it's December, January. But so you can imagine all these fish there all grouped together, and while I'm going to talk about color changes and behavior, the fishery aspect of it is important because human nature was at its worst. Here we are fishing a species that has gathered to reproduce. So you're taking out the broodstock, the spawning adults. This is your capital investment, so to speak, in huge numbers at the wrong time and not thinking about the future. So 20 years ago, the government here in the Cayman Islands put a ban on fishing spawning aggregation sites. And not just this species, but many other species use these sites at different times of year. Very important to realize that. So following up with that, the Reef Environmental Education Foundation and our own Department of Environment started the Grouper Moon study. And the documentary, we've done 2 documentaries about it with George, one in 2012 and one in 2017, just to show the progress in terms of recovery. Basically what happened was that the spawning broodstock was protected by the government, no fishing allowed, and the effectiveness of that was monitored by Reef in terms of counts done annually. And the groupers were found to actually increase in number, but also we got to study their behavioral part, which is what I'm painting here now, and we'll talk more about that. Mm-hmm. But also we got to go and film and see this amazing color change when they do spawn, and the spawning behavior, which happens right at dusk, almost pitch dark down there at 100 feet. And I'm going to paint what is a daytime coloration compared to what is a spawning coloration. So Jess, you've been there. Do you want to keep going on this subject about the sort of progress made over this long time and why protections over a long period are important for species that are long-lived?
Yes, it is. This site is not allowed to have access by anybody except Department of Environment at this time, and it's to ensure that because this is the last known site in the Caribbean.
No, it's the
largest known site in the Caribbean. My apologies, but it's a very important site, and these are what we've learned from the research is that these are local groupers. We don't receive. There's not been much evidence to show that we get spawn from other Caribbean islands here. There's been one interesting drift net or drift, what is it called? Drifter receiver that has shown that there might be some connection with Cuba, but mostly it's the eggs are sticking around the Cayman Islands. And so if we take out a lot of these animals, as Dad was saying, it's going to take a long time for these animals to recover. And when you're down there, it's an incredible opportunity. We participated in helping with Reef and DOE take counts of these animals. And it was something that I've never done before. And if I can just show them this picture here.
Yep.
So this is a picture that Dad drew.
Painted.
Well, yes, painted. And which highlights how the female here is going off is full of eggs, and the males, which have changed color, only during this time do they do this, to breed with the female in hope of fertilizing her eggs. And to be able to witness that was something so special. And so to be able to show that to you guys through the educational videos is quite a treat.
Well, I actually painted the female here in the daytime colour because she hasn't changed colour yet, but as you can see, her belly is distended. So here quickly, just to show you how remarkable this is.
Okay, I'm going to move this closer so that people can hear. Whoops.
Just to show you how remarkable this is the daytime coloration of the Nassau grouper, an adult. Right here, it's got these beautiful dark bars on it, and you can see them from a mile away when you're diving. And then as they get closer to spawning time, which is right after the full moon, and you can see that I painted the distended belly here too of the female with all the eggs, and they really look like footballs. And the males also go the same color. But look at that contrast, you know, that's the same animal.
Wow.
And so it's quite a shocking difference. And the explanation for it, I have none really, except for it must be, transmitting some kind of a group triggering mechanism to make them all spawn. But compared to the snappers that spawned in Gladden Spit in Belize when we were there, the Q-bearers and the dog snappers, these guys go off in groups and they spread out along the edge in 100 feet of water, so they're deep down. Whereas the snappers go off all at once in a giant whirlpool, a tornado of fish, and it all happens at once and in 5 minutes and it's all done. Mm-hmm. These guys will do it as the population has grown larger. They do it in the first year we went there in 2011, it was one spawn, one night. And then as the population grew and grew, it became 2 nights and then 3 nights. And the last counts, I think, have been 4 nights. But to follow on with the success story, in 2012, there was a huge recruitment of 1-year-old fish. They're literally 6 or 8 inches long in the back reef area. And we knew that because they take 6 years to mature, that those fish 5 years later will be participating in the spawning aggregation site. And in fact, in 2017, they were. And so we had this huge spike of recruitment, about 3,000 more adult fish into this bag, which was unbelievable because the growth of the spawning adults had only been very incremental. And people were saying, well, why is it so slow? Why haven't they come back faster? And now we realize that recruitment of spawning adults is haphazard. It's very intermittent. And occasionally you get very bad years, and some years you get really good years. But, like I said, this is a long-lived fish. They can be 30 years old, they can grow to 50 pounds, and if you whack them hard, they're going to take a long time to come back. And that's exactly what's happened. Mm-hmm. But it's been persistence by our Department of Environment and by the reef team, Dr. Bryce and Christy Evans, who've led the charge, and it's working. And we have become a sort of example for the rest of the Caribbean of what can be done. The combination of good laws, good enforcement, good research work, and lack of fishing, of course, and just oversight of the whole process. Mm-hmm. And of course, the ultimate game is to get this population back so you can have some fishing. There's now a closed season for these guys 5 months of the year, and there's a slot size, a minimum size. You can only take them when you can take them. That's between May the 1st and I think the end of November, within a certain size so that you don't ding your population of spawning adults. It's the first time that's ever happened in the Caribbean country to my knowledge. It's very common in America to have slot sizes for fish so that you don't take the really small fish and you don't take the spawners, who are your capital investment.
Liz has a great question. Are the young fish tagged?
They were tagged, but they were very hard to catch. We only caught like 2 dozen of them. If you're going to follow one all the way through that period of time, you need to catch a lot of fish and tag them. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to finish off this group here, Jess.
Sure. Yeah, we can show people.
What are you going to talk about?
Well, I'm going to just say a quick hello from everybody who's joined in recently, and thank you so much for doing so. If you missed the beginning, we're talking about conservation success stories today, and as we were just talking about, the Nassau grouper is a great conservation story in the Cayman Islands, thanks to the hard work by the Cayman Islands Department of Environment and Reef. And if you've missed the educational videos on this, you can go on to guyharvey.com to see the educational videos. And there is also a documentary that we did, Grouper Moon Next Phase, that is free for you guys to view. And it highlights the success since it was the first documentary that came out.
Right.
So have a look. Yeah. So Ricardo says, hello from Ecuador, present. A lot of people are saying, thank you so much. It's amazing to see. Nick says, you're a very down-to-earth kind of guy. That's great. Hello, Susan from Dover. Chris is very excited about the Nassau grouper. Thank you. I'm
using watercolor here. Just normally, for these sessions, I've been doing acrylic paint because we've been doing it on large format. But for a small painting like this is only 12 inches by 8 inches, 7 inches. And,
right.
I'll probably use this illustration because this is really a fish portrait.
Right.
I'm just showing, the profile of the fish. I might use this in my upcoming book, because there's a whole chapter about this exact thing we're talking about, conservation success stories. You know, people want to know what they look like, and here is a clear example of what it takes. So again, I've drawn it out in pencil. I've used a hard ink outline, and I'm doing several layers of watercolor just to get this mottled pattern on the face of this national grouper. They have very large nares, by the way. That's a nostril hole, and it's bright red, and it looks kind of weird, but it's kind of typical of a Nassau grouper. And of course, you know, if you're a diver, these fish are very friendly, and one of the things about going to Little Cayman, in particular, and Grand Cayman even, is that they'll come right up to you like a dog and follow you around for the rest of the dive, and you can rub them and pet them, and they're very sort of interactive with divers. So they can turn a good dive into a great dive for divers, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And another, if people who are also interested not only in sea stuff but land stuff as well, another great success story is of the blue iguana, which is in the Cayman Islands. It's only found in Grand Cayman, and it's one of a small group of iguanas. 9. There used to be 9. Now there are only 8 species.
Really?
Yes, of the rock. It's actually considered the most endangered iguana species in the world.
Throughout the Caribbean, or just here in Cayman?
No, throughout the Caribbean. And so, yeah, we did a feature on on educational videos, because one of the things that we had issues with was the invasive green iguana and them competing for space. So that was the purpose of the educational video on blue iguanas. And again, it's taken a lot of hard work in order to bring that population back from near extinction to about over 1,000 individuals. Well, again, long-lived animals as well.
How long do they live for? Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's over 20 years for some of them.
And how often do they breed?
They breed once a year. And they have much fewer young than a green iguana can have about 80 young in one go, and a rock iguana has about 20. And so, but they get much bigger. But it's in time and investment. The reason that it was so important that they be brought back was because before there were people, rock iguanas generally, but in Grand Cayman, the largest land animal that was here was the blue iguana, and they were important as seed dispersers, and so played a very important role in their ecosystem.
Hold on, so all these iguanas are vegetarians?
Yeah, well, mostly vegetarians. Occasionally they'll eat crabs or dead birds just to get extra protein. Yeah, but they'll predominantly eat plants. Which is why they're so important. And it's said that once it passes through an iguana system, it actually helps the plant grow that much faster.
It triggers it to germinate.
Yes. And so, yeah, but all of these things, especially for long-lived animals, it's very important that protections are in place, because the amount of work needed to help bring the population back is going to take so much longer than if we try to do the right thing in the first place and not take them out to that point.
Well, that's a good point. And going back to the groupers, while you can protect a species effectively through, once you bring the population back through closed areas, closed seasons, and slot sizes, it is much more effective to protect an entire area. And so marine parks are a very good tool with which to bring back populations of not just one species of fish, but many different species of fish in an area. So while the Nassau groupers have been preferentially hunted in one place at one time, you want to bring back all the other guys too. You want to bring back all your herbivorous fish, your parrotfish and your tangs, your surgeonfish that are grazing algae, because they also benefit the reef. They increase coral growth, they keep algae down. As you know, algae smothers everything. And so you're covering a multitude of sins by having marine park systems. And unfortunately, due to a mistake by our very wise lawmakers here, the Spag site is now no longer included in a marine park, and that's something that has to be changed here. That's an oversight by somebody, some fishery manager who didn't make the point, or somebody who didn't appreciate the value of spawning aggregation sites to the well-being of your Caribbean fish populations. Spawning sites are critical habitat for many, many, many species of reef fish, and it's really important that governments go and identify, or fisheries divisions and departments of environment, identify all the spawning sites that you have in your jurisdiction, and you put a legal fence around them and let nobody ever fish there again, because these places are the sort of crucible of all the growth that happens for all your fish. And so I can't impress upon you how important spawning aggregation sites are for just the well-being of all species.
And in the documentary, you can see where previously recorded spawning aggregation sites are and how it's been reduced over time. So please have a look. I'm just going to try and tackle a couple of questions that have come up. Michael's asking, are conditions in the blue iguana's natural environment improved before the captive young are released? So they are released in 2 reserves that have been protected for a long time. They do face issues with feral cats, and that's been something that has been a ongoing issue that the government is trying to tackle, because they have their natural predators as the racer snakes, but the cats are also a problem. So that is something that is a threat. Also, the threat of building roads through partway through the reserves is a constant threat as well.
Well, you're saying that the most rock iguanas in Cayman Brac are killed by cars and not by natural
Yes.
growth?
Well, it's the reason being that iguanas are reptiles and they need to warm up to kickstart their metabolism. And where is the best place to warm up quickly? Is on a flat asphalt road. And so they gravitate towards the roads, and unfortunately speeders particularly, even though the speed limits is quite slow, people aren't paying attention mostly, or they speed, or in some
iPhones chatting.
or in some cases, unfortunately people do purposely run over them because they
Now, hold on, why would you run over an endangered endemic species on purpose?
Well, the reason people do, a lot of people don't like them because people who try to grow vegetables in their own yard end up having to compete with some territorial iguanas who have also learned that it's easy meals. And so unfortunately people have considered them a pest. And so that leads to the unfortunate behavior of people, running them over. But, they're protected.
Fines for that?
Yes, of course there are. There are fines as there any are, but it's being caught, So every time something something like that happens, it's brought to light, and so that people are aware of the level of mortality. But again, I don't know if we talked about this before with the spawning aggregation sites, is that this spawning aggregation site, after we helped fund this particular research, discovered, I think, 26 other species that use this site.
That was my point. Yeah.
Which is important because it means it's a blanket fence around it, a conservation fence around it all year round would really ensure that those animals won't also be taken as well. But what's great is that the closed season includes that spawning season. So they're somewhat protected, which is good.
Yeah, but there are other species.
Yes, Michael, they should at least get a ticket if hitting one. Yes, ideally, but you have to, the hard thing is proving it. And so, it's just a constant reminder for an education to get people to understand the value of these creatures, to get people to pay more attention on the roads. And so, it will hopefully reduce down to nothing, but it just takes everybody to to be careful of it.
You should have a sign out there that says, "Don't kill the iguanas. Extinction is forever."
That's true. Yeah, no, it's true. They have warning signs on the roads, but yeah, no, that's a good point. So if anyone has any questions about the documentary or about groupers in general or conservation success stories that they want to share, feel free. What time is it now? Do we have 5 minutes left?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
5 minutes left. Roman is asking what medium did he use for the ones he's working on. This is watercolor here.
Yeah. All watercolor, yeah.
So I'm not allowed to touch this one, right, Dad?
Yeah, you can.
If anyone saw the last Facebook Live we did, I got a very rare opportunity to put some foam bubbles on his acrylic.
Oh, okay.
And I won't be doing that this time round.
There are several phases in between. These are the two extremes. So in the documentary, you will see that too, how there's different phases. The males typically turn the black and white color first, of course, underwater. Remember, this is all happening at 100 feet down. This is not in the shallow water. Mm-hmm. This is not a beginner's dive.
No, right.
In the dusk, in current, low light conditions. We got big lights for filming, and all of this spawning is happening. And the white looks blue down there, pale blue, and the dark color, it's almost like a velvet. There's no shine to it. It's kind of a chocolatey, bluey, very dark color. But the contrast, especially, I like this part here where the stripe through the eye is basically reversed. It's gone from very dark to very light.
Oh, and, yeah, I didn't even notice that.
I just find it amazing. Yeah.
And the other thing too that
I wish I knew what it meant.
the other thing too is what was the point I was going to make? Oh, and these, it takes a long time. Research takes a long time to answer questions because not only do you have to get the animal that you're studying, you have to do it you have to repeat your study multiple times to make sure that you're taking out as much bias as possible, account for mistakes, etc. And especially for a long-lived animal, it takes a long time. So one of the other things that Reef and DOE have been working on is studying how climate change is going to affect the development of these groupers. So the eggs.
And larvae, yeah.
And
the eggs only last 24 hours. Then they hatch. They become larvae and juveniles, and they remain suspended in the plankton. This is why people use drifters to follow theoretically where they went. They remain in the plankton either to return to the island where the spawning took place, or this is how you get, this distribution of species by what we call larval drift, and that's how lionfish invaded such a wide area so fast. The larvae got carried from point A to point B, which could have been 100, 200 miles away, and that whole system explodes, and that's how you colonize new areas if you're a new species. But if you're a resident fish like this, and you want to keep your species going, you're going to produce as many eggs as possible. You're going to lay them in the best place possible for the widest distribution possible, as fast as possible, to minimize predation of those eggs and larvae. And when I'm talking about predation of eggs, in Belize, the whale sharks come in to feed on the eggs because they're synchronized over tens of thousands of years to do that. But they take advantage. But those snappers are producing so many eggs, they're compensating for the removal of some by predators. But when they become larvae and they're feeding off their yolk sac, then they're starting to eat phytoplankton and other zooplankton around them. They grow, but by the time their yolk sac runs out, that's their reserve, and they got to find bottom. They got to find structure in which to hide, because out in the open ocean, they're very vulnerable. Right. And so the vast majority of the mortality happens in that phase, from being an egg and in the first 2 weeks. Probably in the first 24, 36 hours. Most of these little guys are going to get eaten.
Right. Melissa, yes, the documentary, I believe, is on Prime, but you can easily find it too on, because it's for free, is the guyharvey.com in the education page as well. Just seeing if there's, Michael Davis says Jack Hanna should talk about this this show too sometime. Yeah, that would be nice.
Jack Hanna's a good buddy of ours.
Then we have, I'm just seeing if there's any more questions. How do we access the documentaries? So you go on to Amazon Prime, and I want to apologize in advance. We are working on this in some region, because it's regionally limited for now. We're waiting for Amazon to invite us into the international realm. We can't just say, hey, and just post it for everywhere. Unfortunately, it's regionally restricted. So we are working on it. So if you can't access all of the documentaries, we apologize in advance, but we are working on it. But the Grouper Moon Next Phase is available on our Guy Harvey website for everybody to see.
But on Jessica Harvey's Expedition Notebook,
yes,
there's a very good 3-minute one.
Yes, yeah. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. A lot of people saying thank you. Missy Martin says remembering Koiba.
Oh yeah.
Mary Keffer says any species you can only see in the Cayman Islands. In terms of fish, or there's quite a few animals that you can only see in the Cayman Islands from land. But a particular favorite is the blue iguana. That's what Grand Cayman is most famous for from a land species. But there's quite a few endemic subspecies as well. Is there any endemic? Are there any endemic fish species?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly. I'm not sure. There's like some obscure little tiny reef fish probably, but no. What we don't see here are some fish that you commonly see in Cuba and Jamaica and Florida. Like we don't get king mackerel here. I've never seen a cobia here. We don't see jack crevalles. So we are missing a few species. Like also on land, we don't have hummingbirds here, and we don't have vultures compared to say Jamaica, which is only 250 miles that way. So on land, we're missing a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
we're a small place, with no mountains, no rivers, so limited.
Ed's asking, has Dr. Harvey ever needed to correct previously published research that was found to be different?
Not of mine, but I know that research is always ongoing, and the more you study a long-lived species, the more you're going to learn about them. And sure, that we have, there have been changes made to people's publications just because they discovered something in addition to what they've already written about.
Mm-hmm. Well, the perfect example is the research done on catch data for the mako shark versus the spot tagging work that we've done, which corrected the amount of animals that were thought to have been harvested. The mako sharks, short-fin mako sharks I'm talking about. So that's an example of how the correction of applying corrected science has actually helped save a species. Because they were relying on limited data.
Well, if you're relying on fishery-dependent data, that's different from relying on fishery-independent
right,
data.
That's what I mean.
If you're setting the fox to count the chickens in the coop, you're going to get a different result from an independent party doing the count.
Okay, Chris is saying, are they lifting restrictions in Cayman Islands like the USA? From the COVID standpoint, no. We are going to be on lockdown for a little while. They have, to be fair, because Cayman Islands made up of 3 islands, the Little Cayman has had all of their restrictions taken off except traveling between islands. Which is wonderful for them because they can get back out onto the water. Cayman Brac has also recently been, they had all their, pretty much everybody tested in Little Cayman because there's only 100 and something people there. But in Cayman Brac, they've had a number of people tested and allowed now for people to go out on the boat, still restricting certain things, but certainly we're still very much restricted in Grand. And we're not going to be traveling for a pretty long time.
3 months.
Unfortunately, because we're still trying to nip this in the bud, and so life is going to change definitely. But we're safer as a result, so can't really complain. Right, so that's pretty much it for us today. Mm-hmm. Bob has a quick question about blue marlin, and I'll just send it in. Why do you not show pelvic fins in your paintings?
I do occasionally. The thing is that they don't display their pelvic fins except for occasionally when they're feeding. The pelvic fins are vestigial, basically. That means they're a rudiment of what was formerly a much larger fin. They don't have any surface area, so they can't really affect any forces on the motion of the fish by displaying the pelvic fins. A sailfish, on the other hand, has very large pelvic fins, even though there's only one fin ray, but they're like a belt or a strap. They're often 2 inches wide, and when you put down 2 of them, they make the whole fish look much bigger, as I think I was explaining last time. When the dorsal fin is up, pelvic fins are down. Hold on.
Yes, but better explained in person.
There we go.
So
here you go. Pelvic fins they're like a strap. A blue marlins are a third of this length, and they're like just a single spine. They're as thin as my paintbrush here, so they would look like that. Even thinner actually, and so they don't actually exert any force on the water. But it's a combination of the dorsal fin up, the pelvic fins down, that make the fish look 3 times as big as it is.
right.
So definitely helps there.
Okay. I'm going to just try and tackle a few more questions because they were good ones. Mary's saying sea turtle population is getting higher in the Cayman Islands. We will be finding out. What is interesting is that there have been turtles reported in places that haven't been reported for many, many years. I would go on to the Department of Environment's website and have a look at their turtle program, because over the time that they have been in existence, they have brought back the turtle population from near extinction here in Cayman, which is another fantastic success story.
In reality, turtles in the Atlantic, certainly Caribbean Atlantic, have made a very good recovery, because of just about every nation has kind of pulled together on this. I wish they would do it for sharks too, because that's just as important species. But turtles have made a big comeback, and again, everywhere.
What do you mean should do it for shark species?
Because islands are not coordinated in terms of shark conservation.
Oh, right, right, okay.
Basically because there's more sympathy for turtles. That's my point.
Right.
But the point being that, again, turtles are extremely long-lived, probably longer than sharks in many respects. And so their recovery is going to take a very long time to come back, because they were hunted for centuries by seagoers formerly, and then by individual island populations, and reduced to the brink of nothing. And of course, when you're long-lived and slow-growing, it's going to take a long, long, long time to come back. So I would expect green turtles or loggerheads to really fully recover for another 200 or 300 years.
Cool. Okay. And Carlos is asking any advice on how to help organizations that study, rescue, and rehab sea animals after the restrictions get lifted.
You probably have to go onto like a SeaWorld website for that kind of information. Yeah.
It's the main thing would be to its organizations would continue their studies, and in the sense that though the restrictions are in place, if they've got rehabbed animals, then they would be following the same rules that they would have been to release them from the beginning. So it would just be a matter of continuing to support them, especially when they haven't had a flux of funding to help that too. I hope that answers that question. Juan's saying, have you ever done any Arctic marine work in the art of or conservation? No. Well, you've done some stuff, Arctic stuff. You've drawn Arctic animals, but for specific projects. All right. So I think. Oh, and the white sharks have come back tremendously as a result of conservation. Swordfish have come back tremendously. There's a lot of different conservation stories. So this is
the Goliath grouper.
The Goliath grouper is another one. And so I encourage everybody to take the time to research some of these projects, and just because conservation does work, but it has to be coordinated, it has to be well thought out, it has to be funded, and it takes community support to so that people aren't jeopardizing the hard work that conservation is trying to achieve.
Right.
And so thank you everybody again. I really appreciate the support you're sharing on this Facebook Live, and we will be back here on Saturday for, let's see what's lined up for Saturday. Oh, that's to be determined for Saturday, but we'll be back on Saturday at 11 Eastern Standard Time. And so hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe, and we will see you soon. Any last remarks, Dad?
No, that's it. Great. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something this week. We look forward to talking to you again on Saturday.
Whoop,
Have a great
whoop.
week.
Bye.